Good morning, everyone. I know this is Runecasting Wednesday. Okay, I'm aware of this. However, I had a little bit of an urge this morning, a little tingling sensation in the back of my mind that said, grab another deck. And so, I grabbed this one. This one, Angels and Ancestors, it's a little bit of a mix. It's a mix between Celtic, Native American, Aboriginal, and Earth-based spiritualities. We used Celtic Tarot yesterday, and I'm going to say I have felt a very deep connection with this particular deck. It's really nice. And since we are using Viking Oracle and we're using Runes of the Gods Oracle, I figure, why not? They seem to work really well together. And so we'll be drawing 3 cards from that one too. So I want you to get ready. Alright, so not a lot to announce today. Sorry about the video going up late yesterday. I was also, while I was editing that and dealing with it, I was also helping Moots with her character for the upcoming Morgansfort campaign that we're about to play. And generally just kind of doing a little bit of a juggling act, but having a lot of fun too. There we go. Okay, so got the significator, which is you, and the guide. But now we're gonna, yeah, I'm laying them in reverse. I don't know why. Lay that one over here. And then we'll lay that one over here. Alright, now 3 more cards and then we'll get to reading. Here we go. Card number 1. Card number 2, and uh-oh. Come on. Come apart. There we go. That's my jam. Okay, excellent. Now we've got those cards out, ready to go. Let's have a look and see what today holds. So the question that I asked the cards was, what do we need to know about today to successfully navigate it? And we'll start with you, because everything begins and ends with you. Got Frithgeared. Are we really at peace with ourselves today? That's the question. And the fact of the matter is, when you're at peace with yourself, you can pretty much, you can shrug off pretty much anything else, right? Here we go. And we have Scotty, which tells us, and I'm always getting this message from this particular card. We have our preferences. It's important to compromise at times, but not too much. Definitely not too much. So today it looks like we're kind of in peace negotiations of sorts, right? We're trying to reconcile some things. A lot of us really have, I know personally, when I'm asked, how are you today? One of my favorite responses is, wishing I were running a D&D campaign. Look, let's face facts. Adulting sometimes sucks. Sometimes we'd just rather not do it. But we have to do it, right? So we give up a lot of our time to go earn the money to pay the bills and do the things that we either want or need to do, right? It's a trade-off. there will be some trading off today. But it's not anything terrible, it's not the end of the world. In some respects you can ask yourself, well, what is it I can live with, right? And in others you have to do some serious reflecting. What would you consider a major win? Even if you had to give a little ground today. So let's go to the runes. We have Tivaz, Fehu, and Thurisaz. So, that's a heck of a reading. Starting with this, we know it's about justice, we know it's about leadership, we know it's about victory. So, what are the victories that you're currently celebrating? Again, we're talking about kind of like coming into the middle, right? Now, ideally, it would all come to you. But we don't live in that kind of world. Ideally, for the other side of things, it would all come to them. But we have to come together equally here. So, I don't really have much of an example for this. The best example I could probably give you is, I'm going to beat this dead horse to glue here. For, like, the games you play here on the tabletop. These kinds of games, if you have a decent DM or GM or whatever you want to use, if you have someone who's decent, just about everything's negotiable to some degree or another. But it doesn't mean it doesn't always mean you're going to get your way. And the best example I can tell you about is there's a guy I used to play those games with. He used to run those games. He'd come to my house and run them. And that was what he said. His hard and fast rule was that there were no hard and fast rules. Everything was negotiable as long as it made sense. I've argued a few of those rules with him. Sometimes it made sense, and even then they still didn't, pass. And I was okay with it. Still played, still had fun. Well, let's talk about your Fehu right now. Alright, so let's look around you. Right now, if you need to pause this video, go right ahead. Pause the video and I want you to take a look at everything you have around you right now. Note, I said everything you have. Go ahead. Okay, got all that? Now, the next question you have to ask is, what can you do with the resources you have at your disposal? How can you maximize those resources? Now, I want you to think for a minute and think, what if you didn't have all of those? How bad of a situation would it be? Yep, that's Mr. Bub making kitty face. Where's your ball? I threw his ball, but he didn't bring it back. He normally does. Anyway, understand that anything can always be much, much worse. Anything and everything can always be much worse. But you're going to have to shift your perspective just a little bit and see exactly what it is you have. You can determine what it is you need, and maybe you can use what you have to get what you need, and possibly more. Best example I can give you of that was the time I just did a little digging. Took some of my own free time that I could have used playing video games or doing something else, and I did some digging, and I cut costs and got a lot more for it. Primarily with my entertainment, package, which I don't use much anymore. Anyway, now, how can you use what you have How can you take charge of it? And how can you overcome this? It seems like there's really a lot of questions today, because these are very situational. They apply to you. Going to the Angels and Ancestors deck, we have the Elder. We have a Broken Arrow. Well, that's not surprising. And we have a Shaolin Master. So, with the Elder, I'm kind of surprised Othala didn't come up, because this is talking about ancestral patterns. This is not the same as tradition. With ancestral patterns, things are different. Your ancestry does have a pattern to it. And where it starts falling into a pattern, it also starts falling into complacency. And when things start falling into complacency, well, that's where you're going to start losing. You're going to start losing quite a bit. But here's the problem. A lot of the patterns that come with your ancestry, what you're moving beyond is the limitations that have been set for you by family members past and present. Now, you got to know one thing. The energy of your spirit is more powerful than genetics and behavioral patterns. I'm going to let that sink in for just a minute. So, the Broken Arrow. This is asking you to embrace the energy of peace. We've got Frithgeared. We've got Skadi out there. We do have conflict and challenges, but here's the thing. I'm going to move from here to here, because once this looks like a little transition to me, and let me tell you why. These people, the Aboriginal people, are the oldest living tribes still on this earth. They still hold to many traditions. They are a hunter-gatherer group of people. But the elders are always imparting wisdom. They hand down knowledge, but they're hoping that the next generation can take the information, take that wisdom that they're getting, and move beyond it. To evolve, so to speak, while still staying deeply rooted in those traditions. A broken arrow is never fired. It's never aimed at an enemy. But here's the interesting thing. Because once we embrace that energy of peace, when we decide, you know what, I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm not going to get drawn into that drama. Think of the TV series Kung Fu. You had David Carradine's character, Kwai Chang Caine. A very soft-spoken, very gentle individual, until those he knew and loved were threatened. Then and only then did he use force to neutralize that threat. But the thing about Kung Fu as a martial art is it's very graceful. All the movements are fluid. It looks a little strange at times, but it does work. It's not relying on very jerky movements. It's relying on very fluid movements. And that's where we are at the moment. We're kind of, we're experiencing a lot of emotion right now. We're trying to deal with a lot of things. And I've told you yesterday, if you caught the video yesterday, that was going to happen. So it looks like the responses to our conflicts and challenges aren't to take a knee-jerk approach. They're to deal with them. So As Bruce Lee once said, when they expand, you contract, and when they contract, you expand. You adapt to your situation. Remember, adapting to your situation means kind of giving a little ground where you normally wouldn't, but only a little, just enough to get what you need out of that situation. Meanwhile, the other has to give a little as well. If they're not moving and you're the one doing all the movement, well, if you move from here to here, you've done your due diligence, and this other person is the one not really helping the situation. Get what I'm saying? Hope so. Anyway, true justice is about balancing the scales. We're trying to find that balance today in a very unbalanced and not so harmonious world. But it's important that you're at peace with yourself first. Otherwise, you'll never find it with anyone else. You certainly won't be negotiating. And let me tell you something, if you're one of those types of people making demands, they're not going to be met. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's a fact of the matter. What, you want some tea? Yeah, he does not like tea. I'm letting you know. Anyway, I'm going to get going so I can get this thing out. Also, the rune of the day will be on high notes. Last week it was Kanaz, it was enlightenment and fulfillment. Let's see what it is this week. By the way, I've noticed a little uptick in people who've been adding me to high notes. Is it any of you? If it is, drop me a comment either here or on high notes. Anyway, I'm going to get going. Thank you all so much for joining me. I truly appreciate and love you all. I really do. And if I don't say it enough, well, I hope I do. Someone out there does. Take care of yourselves and each other. Always do what lights you up every time you get a chance. And as always, my friends, shine on.